Hello, everyone. My name is Susan Kudalakis, and I'm Senior Marketing Manager here at Progress. Welcome to our Ask Me Anything, the Progress Agentic RAG solution and OpenEdge platform. So let's start by quickly introducing you to our speakers for today. I'm joined by Udald Kamrubi, Irfan Syed, and for Q&A, Cameron Wright. Udald is former CEO of Nuclea, which is today Progress Agentic RAG, where he helps enterprises unlock the full value of their data through next-generation retrieval augmented generation and agentic AI systems. His focus is on building AI that is transparent, modular, and genuinely useful technology that turns unstructured information into precise, actionable answers at enterprise scale. Irfan Syed is Director of Quality Engineering at Progress, with over 18 years of experience and 15 years at Progress. He has worked across many other Progress products, but most primarily on Progress OpenEdge. His contributions include work on the Progress application server for OpenEdge and most recently building the OpenEdge MCP server and its integration with Progress Agentic RAG. With over 20 years experience, Cameron brings a unique perspective to OpenEdge customers, having worked on both the consulting and engineering side. He excels at listening and helping OpenEdge customers and partners find solutions to complex problems. With a keen eye for looking at code and systems, Cameron has played a pivotal role in helping customers migrate to the latest versions of OpenEdge. I'm really excited to have all of our speakers with us today, and now I'll turn it over to them to start the discussion.
Thank you very much, Susan, for the introductions. This webinar is actually especially interesting and exciting to me because it focuses on two important aspects. The first one is that we will explore the AI capabilities from Progress Software. And the second is we'll demonstrate how integrating two products helps solve real-world business use cases and business challenges. What do you think about this, Udald?
Hi, Irfan. So it's a very interesting topic. It's also a question that when talking to customers, we've been asked a lot how customers, OpenEdge customers, can leverage AI. How they can somehow even modernize the offering that they are providing to customers. So I'm sure that we are going to do our best to explain how we can help. And hopefully we are also going to be able to teach some of the concepts that today the market is talking about, and hopefully everyone will understand a bit better.
Absolutely, completely agree with you. So with this, let's dive into the topic. So, as we all know, Progress OpenEdge is a high-performance application development platform responsible for, developing mission-critical applications and building business solutions. Its core strength lies in data and business logic. While customers have realized the robust solutions and deliver consistent value over the years, building on these foundations, customers have created services exposed through RESTful APIs, RESTful services, and seamlessly connected them to a modern front-end solutions. Now, this is what I'm describing, what you see on the left side of the screen. On the other side of the screen, as part of evolutions, customers have solutions that they have built that rely on large volumes of high diverse data ranging from invoices, reports, PDFs, and manuals to images that could go from logs, sensor data, and many different kind of things. And this really are a piece of information that is really responsible and required for their application to understand how the user journey is. This data is constantly evolving and may have grown significantly over time to meet challenges specific to business requirements. It may or may not reside in OpenEdge platform, and customers may have traditionally taken responsibility of this data and for maintaining and managing it. If I have to categorize this data, I would say the left side of this data is structured data, and the right side of this data is unstructured data. Structured data, as I have been explaining, it's well-defined format like tables, databases, and fields and rows relationships, etc., which is very clearly defined and well understood. Whereas unstructured data, on the other hand, does not follow a rigid structure. It includes things like documents, images, PDFs, videos, catalog, etc., etc., etc. Now, in the age of AI, if our goal is to build AI capabilities, if I would like to perform a search capability across my application, my users, my customers would ask me about, can I go and search the data and get the business related information? They would not ask me that I would like to go and search for structured data, or I would like to go and search for unstructured data. When I have to solve a problem like that, I'm pretty much aware of OpenEdge for a while. I've been using OpenEdge for a long time, and I know how to uh, make that data available for AI. But I'm not completely sure how to do that for unstructured data, or I'm not completely sure how to do them together. Yudal, you have been in this space for a very long time in AI space. What do you think? How do you think we can solve this problem?
So first of all, it's very interesting for everyone to understand the difference between unstructured data and structured data. And it's important to understand because what we see in the market is that users, customers, when they have a question, they want the answer. They don't mind if the information they require to get the answer is coming from a PDF or it's coming from an SQL table. They want the answer. So being able to offer a solution in which, regardless the question of the user, we are able to provide an answer based on both unstructured and structured data, it's something that the business necessarily will have to start to adopt, because this is how users want to behave with the softwares, with the solutions that they are using. And this is exactly why we decide to build Progress Agentic RAG. So let's go to the next slide. And today we are going to, I am going to make a very short introduction on that concept of Progress Agentic RAG, but especially on the concept of RAG. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Those are some words that sometimes they sound a bit funny and hard to understand, but I will try my best to make sure that we can provide a very easy way to understand what retrieval augmented generation is. Next. So if we take the same slides that you were showing before, in which we have in the left side of the image of the slide, we have unstructured data, and in the right side, unstructured data. Unstructured data could be from a PDF, it could be a URL, it could be a video, it could be anything you can imagine. So as I said a moment ago, when a user needs an answer, they don't mind where the answer is coming from, even if it's coming from the left or from the right. And this is exactly, this layer that you see here in the blue line is exactly Progress Agentic RAG. And it's a layer that I will double click on it in a minute, but it's the layer that it lets you offer in your application a way to answer to your users, answer to your customers based on both unstructured and structured data. Let's go to double click on what is RAG. I could explain RAG in a very technical words. This is something that I don't like doing because for me, it's very important to make sure that everyone really understands the basics, what really means. And I will explain this with an example. So let's imagine that you are in your location, wherever you are today, and you are hungry and you want to go for lunch. And you, instead of cooking at home or eating at the office, you are looking for restaurants in the area. And you open ChatGPT and you ask a question, which is, please let me know the 10 best restaurants in my area. So ChatGPT, when you ask this question, it will provide you a list of 10 restaurants, according to ChatGPT, the 10 best restaurants. But in the list that ChatGPT suggests to you, it might happen that it suggests that McDonald's is among those top 10 restaurants in your area. Probably, and probably, maybe we have a huge fans of McDonald's here. I have nothing against, I like McDonald's, but probably we could agree that McDonald's should not be considered among the top 10 restaurants that we have in our location. What happens in here is that, first of all, ChatGPT is able to answer this question because ChatGPT was trained with public available information, and LLMs, ChatGPT or other models, are built to satisfy the humans. So an LLM will always answer something to the human. And the answer that ChatGPT figure out is that among the list of the restaurants that that is suggesting to us, McDonald's is maybe the top 3. So we have 2 things in here. The first one is ChatGPT being able to answer the question, which is great, even if we could disagree. And the second thing, which is an important topic, is that since the models, they need to satisfy the humans, sometimes models hallucinate. They pretend to know something, and they answer something that it's not really true. And the way they answer that question, it's in a very confident way. So first thing we have to understand, models, LLMs, ChatGPT is trained with all public available information in the market. And when the model does not know the answer, it basically hallucinates to make sure it provides an answer to the human. What happens when instead of asking questions to public available information, what we want to do is asking a question on top of our internal knowledge, the information we have in our company. So basically, this is RAG. RAG is a way for organizations to make sure that they can ask questions on top of private information, internal information, while keeping data security and data privacy in place and avoiding hallucinations, which is a very important value from retrieval augmented generation, answering only on top of internal information while we avoid hallucinations when we provide the answer. This is a very basic definition on RAG. Hopefully I managed to provide a better understanding in what it means. And now we are going to start understanding also what agentic agents mean in our industry. So today we are introducing Progress Agentic RAG. And before talking about agentic, it's also important to understand what an AI agent is, because everyone is talking about agentic workflows, AI agents, agentic RAG, and everything it's about agents. So it's also very important for all of us to understand what an AI agent is. AI agent is a very simple thing. Sometimes it sounds difficult to understand, but it's a very easy concept to understand. An AI agent is nothing else than a few lines of codes that, to achieve the specific task they have to achieve, they use LLMs, they use models to achieve that task. That means, as an example, that you could have an agent that it's able to classify your data automatically. You can have an agent that it's very focused only to summarize a document, as an example. And basically, once we understand the concept of an agent, which is a very specific few lines of code meant to exclusively achieve a specific task, when we understand the concept of agent and we plug it together with the concept of RAG, so being able to ask questions on top of my internal knowledge while keeping data security and privacy in place and avoiding hallucinations, things start being very interesting. Because with agentic RAG, you can, as an example, auto-classify your data. You can, as an example, extract from your documents or answer on top of your documents some specific questions. You can, as an example, summarize your documents or write new descriptions of your product, as an example, in a very automated very automated way. So when we plug agents and RAG, we are really enhancing the capabilities and putting our data, our knowledge, and bringing our knowledge, into a place where we can really start extracting value from the knowledge that today is laying in some folder system that we have in place. Let me try to explain and to give a deeper explanation on how it works, because right now we just explain the concepts, but I would like to explain effectively how you have to think about a RAG pipeline. So what you have in here is a high-level explanation on how you have to imagine a RAG pipeline, in that case, Progress Agentic RAG. And I would like to start explaining Progress Agentic RAG by defining how we define ourselves. Because the way we describe what we are doing is that Progress Agentic RAG is an end-to-end agentic modular RAG as a service platform based on quality. And those words, end-to-end, agentic, modular, as a service, and quality, really define the way we deliver our product to our customers. Let me start with the end-to-end. So here, in the image that you have in the slides, if we go from left to right, you can see that in the left, you can start using the product, Progress Agentic RAG, with any file type in any language. And we take care of all the process until, if we go now to the right side, until you can ask questions to your files. And at the same time we provide an answer to the user, we also deliver quality metrics. We let our customers to understand the quality of the outputs, the quality of the answers. So, and that means end-to-end, being able to deliver in a single experience everything that goes from any file type in any language till you get answers on top of your documents, making sure that the output is quality-based. We are modular because maybe today we are not going to have time enough, but let's imagine our companies. And let's imagine a company that it has a marketing department, it has a legal department, a sales department, and a customer support department. All of them, they have the same knowledge, internal knowledge. But the way that the legal department, the sales department, the marketing department wants to get answers on the existing knowledge, it's different. Probably the legal department will want way more precise answers and very focused on legal terms, while the sales department, what they want is get answers that they can then use as a way to sell more to customers. So when we think about RAG, it's very important that we are able to fine-tune the RAG pipeline to provide, on top of the same data set, different use cases for every single department of the company. And this is what modular means. We are able to, our customers are able to really, with no code, with a very clean UI, with a very clean user experience, they are able to just touching some parameters to make sure the output is good. And quality, I already referred to quality. There is no company in the world, and probably the ones of you that are product business owners, any company in the world is going to deploy an AI solution in production without making sure that they control the quality of the outputs. And in our case, we do provide very strong quality metrics to make sure our customers can feel confident when deploying the solution in production. Let me explain now in 2 minutes, very, very fast, the process that we follow. So let's imagine that we upload a PDF. So for you to understand how it works, when we upload a PDF into the system, first of all, we are able to extract the full text of the file. Together with the full text, we extract images, and we also OCR the images. OCR means that if an image it has text, we are able to extract the text of the image, once we have the full text of the file with all the images, we automatically break the full text of the file into paragraphs. In our industry, a paragraph is a chunk, but basically it's the same. Once we have the paragraph from the data from your documents, we also detect tables. If the PDF, it has tables, we are able to extract the table, and we then generate something that it's called embeddings. An embedding is only a way to turn text into numbers. And this is the base that we use to offer semantic search. It's a very complex concept. It's not necessary to understand. But I wanted you to understand that we extract the full text, we split everything into paragraphs, we extract tables, and we generate embeddings. We turn text into numbers. And some other very interesting processes that I'm not going to explain now. The thing is that we extract everything and we store that information into a database, which is the blue element that you see in the center of the image. What is very interesting about that database is that in a single database, we have 4 different indexes of information. We have an index with the full text of the file. We have an index with all the chunks from the files, with all the paragraphs. We have a knowledge graph, which is a way that in which we are able to relate the important concepts from your data to understand how those concepts are linked inside your data. And then we have a vector index with all the embeddings, with all the numbers that we managed to extract. And all those different indexes are linked one to the other by metadata. And this is very important because when we go to the retrieval side, which is when a user asks a question, we are doing some interesting process here. The first one is we understand what the user wants to achieve. Based on what the user wants to achieve and understanding the user query, we are going to the database and we retrieve only the specific parts of the data that are useful to answer to the user. So a user asks a question, we understand what the user wants to achieve, we go to the database, we extract only what is relevant to answer to the user, and then with what we extract from the database, this is called context, where we are able to take that context from your data and send it to a language model. A language model, you can define what LLM, what language model you would like to use, ChatGPT, Anthropic, Gemini, you can't really decide it. So we send that context to the LLM, and the LLM, exclusively based on the context that we send to it, it provides an answer. And together with the answer, we provide citation. So we provide every specific part of the document that we provide, that we use to provide the answer. And we also provide the quality metrics that I was explaining before. This is a very highlight explanation on what we are doing. Hopefully now it's a bit more, it's clearer for everyone. So you have a better understanding on how and Progress Agentic RAG looks like. And now I would like to go one step further, which is RAG. It's very interesting because you have your internal data in the database and you are able to answer questions on top of the information you have in the database. But sometimes to answer a question from a user, it requires slightly more than just going to the database that you have. It might require to go to other places. It might require to search public available information or to connect to other softwares. And this is where we want to also introduce the way we are able to also offer Progress Agentic RAG with OpenEdge. So if we go to the next slide, we are going to understand the next step on how we offer Progress Agentic RAG with OpenEdge. And the way we are able to offer this is thanks to RAW. we are talking about a lot of weird words today, and RAO stands for Retrieval Agents Orchestrator. Why is this very important to understand? Because this is the key that it lets you, as an organization, to answer questions from users, making sure that we are able to go to different sources of information to provide an answer. Let me explain. So one of the most interesting things about RAO, and this is the diagram that you see here, it's exactly what we are doing, is that when a user asks a question, we are able to decompose the user query. We are able to understand the intent, and we are able to take that query of the user, and we are able to break it into different subqueries that we have to answer to provide an answer to the main question of the user. So the user asks a question, we break the user question into subqueries, and then we take one of those, each of those subqueries that we have, that we manage to decompose, and we are able to go to different areas in the company to retrieve, to get the specific parts that we need to answer to the user question. So it's not only that we are going to the specific documents and we retrieve only the specific parts of the documents. With RAO, what we are able to do is we are able to go to different specific softwares in the company to retrieve the specific little things that we need to answer to the user. That means, as an example, that you can connect to RAO, Progress Agentic RAG. You can connect to RAO to internet. Sometimes you need information from internet, to SQLs, to MCPs, but also you can connect RAO to your OpenEdge MCP. And that means if we go at the first slide that Irfan was presenting, that thanks to RAO, we are able to answer unstructured data that you might have in OpenEdge together with structured data, that you have in OpenEdge, together with unstructured data that you might have in OpenEdge, or in other SQLs or in other softwares that you use in the company. So basically, we are able to go to those different softwares that you have in the company, and then we are able to retrieve, based on those different softwares that you have, specific parts that we need to answer to the user, and then we merge all the different contexts that we retrieve from those different sources to provide a unified answer to the users. And again, at the answer time, we always provide quality metrics. The last concept that I want to introduce to you, I will try to do very, very easy. It's the concept of memory. So to explain the concept of memory, I will explain something that it happened to me with Irfan yesterday, which is that we were talking about some challenges that we are today working on, and Irfan was explaining something to me. And after 5 minutes of him explaining what we wanted to do, I forget it. I had memory problems, probably like most of you. Sometimes somebody says something to us and we forget. Agents, they face the same challenge. Agents, they face memory challenges because they forget. So together with RAO, we provide short-term memory and long-term memory for agents to not forget anything. So the short-term memory that you see here is the kind of memory that it makes sure that the agents don't forget the task they have to do. I explained before that an agent, it's a very single few line of codes meant to achieve a specific task. When instead of an agent, you have 10 different agents that are working one after the other, agents, they have memory problem and they forget about what they have to do. So the only way to assure that they don't forget the task they have to achieve is by providing memory. So with RAW, we provide to your agents short-term memory to make sure they don't forget what they have to do. And not only this, we also provide long-term memory. And long-term memory, it's very important to provide to the users, to the customers, a very interesting experience, because the memory, the long-term memory, basically it's able to remember every single interaction a specific user did with the retrieval agent orchestration, and it's able to remember the things that the agent, the person, sorry, was asking, the questions that the user had, the answer that was provided. It's a very similar experience that the one that you the one you have today with ChatGPT, in which it keeps remembering the conversations that you had. So the long-term memory, it's very interesting because it lets you provide a hyper-personalized experience to your users. Irfan, I wanted to explain this, and probably it would be interesting if we could go deeper on MCPs and explaining also the concept on MCP. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Del. This was really great. I think looking at this as a platform where I can do more than one thing, which is retrieving more than one kind of data, is really great. And yes, as you said, I'm really excited about this, but I would like to go into the core concepts of how we can go and talk with OpenEdge with this great platform. So to do that, what we have done is we have introduced the capability of MCP in OpenEdge, and we call that as OpenEdge MCP Server. And OpenEdge MCP Server, just to remind that we have two different products of MCP in OpenEdge. One is OpenEdge MCP Connector, a developer tool, a developer productivity tool. And the other one is OpenEdge MCP Server. MCP Server is a production-like tool which can help you to expose your OpenEdge application to the AI layer. And we'll talk about that in details in a minute. So before we even go into that concept, what is MCP? What is this protocol about? So MCP, in short, which was called as Model Context Protocol, is an open standard that lets AI models securely connect to external data or tools or applications in a consistent, interoperable way. So before even MCP came, if you were in the era of AI, or if you're following the space of AI in the past 2 years, 3 years, before MCP, people used to build their own AI agents, and each AI agent used to be built in their own way, and there was no standard. So if you have built an AI agent and you have lived with it for maybe an year or two, and then if some of the modules, if some of them need to be integrated with another AI solutions, or you want to broaden the scope of your AI application solution, it gets more and more harder. To solve that problem, in late November 2024, or late November 2024, Anthropic, they have mentioned that they have started a protocol called as Model Context Protocol, and it really came into existence by a lot of users, a lot of applications adapting it in the first quarter of 2025. This protocol really helped businesses to expose their data to the AI layer, where they could expose them as APIs or as MCP functionality, so that AI can understand, execute them, invoke them for the given user question, and return the right information back to the user. Let's see that in action. How does it work? So let's see, how does MCP work when you have different actors? So there are 3 different actors here. If you see, user application, MCP client, and the MCP server. Let's start from the left side, which is user application. You have user applications which are maybe IDEs, chat applications, or your browser-based applications that has text-based query abilities. Now, when you want to ask a natural language question, it goes to an MCP client. MCP client follows the protocol of the MCP server, which can go and talk with an MCP server. So the MCP client has connection to an LLM. You have to provide an LLM access to the MCP client. Now, with that access, what happens is when you ask a question about, let's say, you would like to ask information about your inventory or stock available in a given warehouse. When you ask that question, MCP client, because it's already made a connection with the MCP server, it has the information about what APIs are available that we can go and communicate. And for that given question, it tries to understand which API is the right API to go and talk. So it makes that decision with the help of LLM, and then it executes the request. And the request is executed on the MCP server. MCP server is just imagine that as an REST API of AI. All it does is it just executes the request and provides the response. And to do that, it follows the model context protocol, which is JSON over RPC, which is running over different standards, which are STDIO, which runs on local desktop machines mostly, and then HTTP if you want to do it remotely. So with this, the communication is intact. The MCP server responds back with the response, which is JSON or XML or whatever it could be. Once the response comes back to MCP client provides the response to LLM, and LLM converts that into natural language and returns it back to a user application. That's basically what the MCP protocol is and how it works. So you have seen that we can build any kind of MCP servers. There are MCP servers for Salesforce, Postgres, HashiCorp Vault, Amazon S3. I'm trying to provide different kind of examples here where there are different kind of vendors available in different industries of MCP servers. Why not OpenEdge? What can OpenEdge do to provide that capability for providing the business logic, expose the business logic as a MCP capability set? So to build that, we have something like this, OpenEdge MCP server. The OpenEdge MCP server, as I've explained to you in the previous slide, to interact with it, you have AI ecosystem, which are AI assistants, chatbots, different kinds of workflows like retrieval agents orchestrator, which Udal has presented earlier, and different AI applications. When they want to go and talk with an OpenEdge MCP server, OpenEdge MCP server should be capable of taking the request and then executing it and giving back the response. For that, it has to have different facets. It has to have different capabilities so that it does it securely. The first and foremost thing is it has security gateway, which basically makes sure that when any AI ecosystem goes and communicates with the MCP server, we try to identify who the user is that is trying to communicate with that. We validate the access control and then we also have rate limiting, where it makes sure that if different kinds of requests are coming in a given duration of time, we can stop it, or we can try to provide a proper error messages, etc., etc. And then API converter. This is an amazing way of exposing your OpenEdge application to the AI ecosystem, which is if you have built ABL applications over decades, and the application logic is all available, and you try to expose them as RESTful services using REST transport or web transport. Once you expose them, and once you convert them into an open API specification, all you need for this MCP server is to provide the input as an open API spec. When you do that, the OpenEdge MCP server automatically converts the open API spec into MCP tools, and it exposes the functionality. That's all is needed for an AI ecosystem to understand what does this specific MCP server does. It has management using CLI. There is a command utility called as MCP Gen, which will help you to create MCP server profiles, manage MCP server profiles, and then it runs in a Docker runtime environment, so the infrastructure is all automated. We have observability layer, which will help you to have structured logging. It has audit logs and request timings. That way, when you're trying to debug or trying to look into the information of the requests that are passing through the MCP server, you can easily go through it. Now, this different layers helps the MCP server to be secure and robust server environment or server infrastructure, and without security, it will not allow the request to go pass through all the way to your ABL applications, which are exposed as PaaS services. So overall, this provides OpenEdge MCP server is a capability set that will help you to expose your PaaS services, or your RESTful services, very easily to the AI layer and make it part of a big AI application ecosystem. Now let's try to understand this with the help of our Progress Agentic RAG. We have tried to build a solution that could use Progress Agentic RAG and OpenEdge MCP server, where we are trying to be an application and try to access the data and see how it works. For that to understand, what we have done is that we've tried to take something that is very, very familiar to us. So if you've been using sports database and you are familiar with the sports database in OpenEdge, uh, there is a customer called as Mountain Sports. So you can see in the right side, I've tried to run a query, then said, show me a customer whose name is Mountain Sports. So we have 3 different customers named Mountain Sports. I'm sure they all belong to different locations, but the customer name is Mountain Sports. So we try to see, do we have a website named Mountain Sports? And fortunately, there is a website named Mountain Sports. So we said, okay, so this is my website. And in this website called as Mountain Sports, it has different kinds of unstructured data, which is images, as you can see here. It has PDFs, it has different kind of stuff. What we really want to do is that we would like to build a solution, an application, where we use Progress Agentic RAG, which is our client-side solution, which will try to retrieve the data from different data sources. And these 2 different data sources are unstructured data, which is the website, and then structured data, which is our OpenEdge application. And then we might also go and get some information from internet and then provide all of that as one single solution. For a user who is trying to ask the question, he would not know where the data is coming from. He would only know that it is just one application that is trying to get the data. So let's try to get into it. So what I'm trying to show here is Progress Agentic RAG. It's the dashboard of Progress Agentic RAG. And in this dashboard, we have already uploaded, we have already have the content of Mountain Sports, and then the website is scraped and the information is all been taken care by Progress Agentic RAG. It's been chunked pretty well. The information is all available. So when I try to ask a question about, I would like to present a birthday gift to my nephew with a nice jacket, then it tries to look at my sources that I already have in my for my Mountain Sports application in the Progress Agentic RAG. As you can see, there is a PDF available called as Mountain Sports new arrival.pdf. So it is trying to look at the information inside this PDF, and it gave me nice information. Not just that, it also gives you nice citations by saying that where did it try to get the information from? And it gave me the information about, okay, it took the information from this jacket. But for me, as an OpenEdge user, that is half the problem. My other half is this data, which is my structured data. As you can see, this is a data set which is exposed as a RESTful service, and you can see there's a JSON. And I'm trying to list all different kinds of items available for my in my sports 2000 or 2020 database. How do I go and get this? That's where retrieval agents orchestrator comes into picture from Progress Agentic RAG. As Vidal has mentioned, Retrieval Agents Orchestrator, in short RAU, is a subproduct of Progress Agentic RAG, and it basically gives you a framework to build an agentic workflow or agentic orchestrator. As you can see, it has different steps to perform, and this is very, very common if you go to any agentic frameworks. It has pre-process, retrieval context, generation, and post-process. Let me explain to you what each step does. The first step, pre-process, is rephrase configuration. What rephrase does is that when I try to ask a question, then it first goes and finds out that what is the user trying to ask. Do I have any context of what the user is trying to ask? For example, if the user is asking a question about, can you give me availability of the stock for different kind of balls? What does a ball mean? Is it a tennis ball, or is it a soccer ball? Is it a volleyball? it doesn't know. So for it to know that information, we are trying to say that there is a context available, which is Progress Agentic RAG knowledge box, which has information about it in a PDF document, in a Word document, in some kind of a report. Why don't you go read that? Why don't you go figure out and then understand what the user is trying to ask? And that is what rephrase agent config is. After rephrase, the next step is retrieval context. As Udal has mentioned, the retrieval has many different capabilities set where it can go and get the information from. Here, for my application that I'm trying to build, I try to build my retrieval in such a way that I can go and first ask the question if it is available in my Progress Agentic RAG knowledge box, my unstructured data, basically, my PDFs, my web application, web information that I have from my websites, my reports, my documents, etc., etc. If that information is available in my knowledge box, good enough. Get the information and show it to the user. If the information is not available or it only provides you sufficient information, then why don't you go to Progress OpenEdge MCP server and get that information? And if that information is not available or not sufficient for the question that was asked, then why don't you go to internet and get me the data? Now, once you try to go and get this information from various different data sources, finally, I would like you to summarize the information and show it to me. Now, this is my workflow. This is how while I defined my workflow. You can define your workflow in any way you want because this is completely configurable. So this is my workflow configuration. Now I would like to see it in an actual application. So we have built a simple application called as Mountain Sports, which is a chat application in this point of view. And this chat application is going to ask few questions. And you can see that the user experience for a user who is trying to ask the question, he does not need to know where the data is coming from. He just goes to a Mountain Sports application and tries to ask the questions. That's it. So the first question is, show me all the golf clubs and golf balls with their price, brand, stock, and availability. So when we ask the question, as you can see in the workflow I've defined, the first thing it does is that it tries to go and rephrase the question. Once it does a rephrase, then it tries to go and ask the question in the knowledge box and see if the information is available in the knowledge box or not. Later, it finds out that this information is not available in my unstructured data source, and then it goes to my structured data source, which is OpenEdge MCP server. In that, you can see it's trying to call different MCP tools, basically REST APIs in the backend. So it's calling get BE item with different kinds of filters to see if it can find the information about golf balls. So once it tries, it iterates and iterates until it gets the information. And once it iterates and then it gets the information, you can see that it summarizes the data and presents it in a very nice way so that we can understand what the data is all about. It shows me different golf balls, golf clubs with the price range, brand, and stock available. This is great. Now, I would like to ask the next question, which is, do we have any offers in different kinds of golf balls, and provide me all the details and the ratings? This information is not available in my database, but it is available in my PDFs, in my websites, which we have scraped. So ideally, this information, I've got it from my website, which we have stored inside the OpenEdge, inside the Progress Agentic RAG. This gives me information about the golf ball types, the ratings, and the price. And this will tell me that what is the best choice for me based on the available golf balls. Not only that, it can only also help me to see where this information is coming from. So I can go and see that the citations of this information that I'm getting this golf ball information from. So now that I have this information, I'm really excited about this application, which is Mountain Sports. So what I would like to do is that I would like to ask a question about, like, I think you give very good deals to me. Are there options for subscription services for Mountain Sports? Where do you have it? How can I go and get it? It tries to get from the knowledge box, it didn't find. It tries to get from the OpenEdge MCP server, it didn't find. Then it went to internet and tried to get the information, and it did really get the information from the internet. So as you can see, this is a unique experience for a user who is trying to ask a question and is trying to get the information from 3 different data sources. It could be Progress Agentic RAG, it could be OpenEdge MCP server, it could be internet. Tomorrow, I don't know where the data could be. So, but we'll try to make sure that the most prominent retrieval data sources are all available as part of Progress Agentic RAG, and then we can build applications and solve business use cases and build so that they can build better solutions. And as you can see, this is very well integrated with OpenEdge MCP server, and we just follow the concepts of what is required for MCP, and we try to build a very secure OpenEdge MCP server. And OpenEdge Agentic RAG with RAU has the great capability to go and integrate with it. I think we had a wonderful time talking about these 2 products. It was great showcasing what we have. Please let us know your questions about this or how you would like to use these products in your business use cases. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you guys. If you don't mind turning on your cameras while we pull up some questions for you to answer. Oh, there you are. All right, we have a lot of questions that have come in. I'm going to try to make get as much in as we can, but if we run out of time, we will get back to folks after the session. So there was one question about avoiding hallucinations. It said, if you're connecting to the internet, how do we avoid answer contamination and avoid hallucination?
Okay, let me take that one. So Progress Agentic RAG, it comes with REMI, which we slightly cover during my presentation, which is an LLM as a judge. Basically, an LLM that it's judging the outcomes of other LLMs. Obviously, if the information comes from internet, we cannot validate that what we pull from Google, let's say, it's truth. Anyway, REMI, it evaluates the context relevant and the groundedness, so how the answer is grounded with the context that we retrieve, and we provide the quality scoring. And that's the way we basically provide evaluations on top of the outputs. But you are right, if the query brings information from internet, either the customer has decided to focus the model to only query one specific source, which is a trusted source, which is something feasible to do. We can guarantee that there is no hallucination. Otherwise, obviously, if you are asking a question on top of internet, you can never know.
All right, so Cameron answered this question in chat, I can see, but I want to ask here because I know it will come up. Does the OpenEdge MCP server require PaaS-OE or have PaaS-OE specific integrations? Or can it be connected to any RESTful API with open API spec?
So just to add to what Cameron said, basically, we need PaaS-OE. PaaS-OE is where your business logic is, business data lives. And we are implementing all kinds of security mechanisms where you can go and securely go and talk with the PaaS-OE server with your own model. You could have client principles, you could have headers, whatever it could be. You could follow that methodology and go and talk with that. So when you have this tighter integration, it's more meaningful for it to be a front end to talk with your PaaS-OE servers and expose them as MCP capabilities.
Yes, good point, Irfan. Thank you.
Okay, so when MCP reaches out to unstructured data, does it query as many AI platforms as are configured and then consult with these agents to come up with a single, hopefully more accurate answer?
I guess the question was not MCP. I guess the question was if RAG or Agentic RAG can go and talk with multiple sub-agents, try to get the information, can it go and collect and bring one single answer? I think the answer is yes, and that's what I think we demonstrated in our example, where we have different kind of data sources. We tried to go and ask a question. Based on the question, based on the context, it went across different sub-agents, try to get the answer, and then respond back with one single unified answer.
So, Irfan, there is a follow-up question to the PaaS-OE. It said your answer was a little confusing. PaaS-OE is required? Why?
PaaS-OE is our OpenEdge backend, right? So if you have an OpenEdge backend, which is a PaaS-OE server, that's where your OpenEdge logic. So if you want to go and communicate with expose your business logic, and then you want to get the data from your business logic, I believe PaaS-OE is the only solution at this point of time, right? Where you can expose your application logic as RESTful services.
Okay, there's a lot of questions that have come in, so I want to make sure that I get to as many as possible. Okay, the next one is it possible if my application is still running on procedure code, a client server setup, not using PASOE app server? Let me rephrase that because that was a little confusing as I asked it. Let's see. Is it possible if my application is still running on procedure codes, a client server setup, not using PASOE or app server? Is it possible to connect to MCP OpenEdge RAG / agent?
No, we expect the backend should be RESTful services, which are REST or web-based services. And we can use the help of OpenEdge MCP Connector to build those services and then expose them as RESTful services. And that could be used with in building and generating the MCP server.
Yes, add on to what Irfan said. Yes, we've used, I've prototyped with building a service interface and being able to rapidly expose procedures using AI to do that. But yes, you will need PaaS to expose those.
Okay, is it possible to look behind the curtain and see where the AI came up with the answers so the system can be verified with follow-up exercises?
Yeah, I mean, as I was demonstrating in my example, as you can see that when I was trying to make an MCP call, it was exactly telling me it was trying to look at different kinds of MCP tools, which tool it was going and getting the answer. So it is giving you the exact information about what tool it's executing. Now, when it comes to the unstructured data, Agentic RAG itself does an amazing job by telling that, okay, I'm trying to get the information and I got this information from so-and-so citations. So RAG as itself, it provides you citations or links about where it got the data from which context. So the context is the key here, and we try to provide at every place the best context that we can.
Yeah, and to add on to that, Irfan, that's what really makes our product, in my personal opinion, makes our product really shine in the market, because sometimes it's tough to see that agentic, the reasoning behind the agents, and you've got prompts and where it gets its data from and why it weights it. A lot of times you've got to burn tokens asking, hey, why did you come up with that decision? And in our dashboard, we can actually look at that and see where we came up with, and then as well be able to adjust the data to help the answers along, to assist the answers along.
Are we ready for another one, guys? Is this something that needs more human supervision initially and then less so over time as the agent becomes more educated? This is referencing RAW and training.
Vidal, you want to take it up?
Vidal, I think you're muted.
Sorry. I was saying that this is almost a philosophical question, but I will try to answer on what we are doing in RAW. So RAW offers full traceability on what agents are doing and how they reason and what specific information they retrieve from the different sources. And each of the information that we retrieve, it comes also with quality metrics. It comes with also an evaluation of what I was explaining before, evaluation from REMI, which is the LLM judging not only the outputs. In that case, it's also evaluating how the agents are reasoning. So human intervention, it's not necessary in this process. One of the things that it could be interesting for humans is, first of all, to understand the behavior of the agents through looking in their reasoning and how they are pulling the information, and maybe tweaking the agents to behave in a specific way. When you set up your agentic workflow using RAW, you can, based on every specific agent that you put in the workflow, you can fine-tune the prompts or the behavior, or you can fine-tune some parameters for every specific agent. So human intervention should be in those areas. First of all, understanding the behavior of the agent, and if the agent is not behaving exactly how you would like it to behave, then go agent by agent and either fine-tune the prompt that specific agent will be using, or fine-tuning some of the parameters that you can fine-tune in the agent itself.
So we are right at the top of the hour. I know that you all said you had a few minutes, so how about we take one more question, and then for everyone that we didn't get back to, because there were a lot of questions, we'll follow up with you. And I know there were some questions on pricing and licensing and getting more help. We'll have folks follow up with you on all of those, but I think this one is really relevant. If I have various backend services, not all written in OpenEdge, can I connect the OpenEdge MCP server to all of them? Or can I use the OpenEdge MCP server with the PASOE OpenEdge based services?
You can use with any RESTful services as a backend. It's not specific to just OpenEdge because we provide this as part of our 12.8 release. So if you are having 12.8 access to ESD, and then you could download it and you can use it with your own backend. Over the time, this will be much more tightly integrated. When I say tightly integrated, we basically are trying to add features in the OpenEdge that could be added benefit, where we can have combinations of MCP server and the OpenEdge server adding a lot of value. But at this point of time, you can definitely use your own any backend service, which is RESTful, and then you can communicate with that.
Right, and we've built the MCP server to understand our security models in PaaS. So when it comes to security, we've already built that all in. So and to connect to something else, can't guarantee the security of it. So I think that's all I want to say on that.
Well, that was good, Cameron, because there was a question about that we didn't get to. So I think hopefully you might have answered it. We're going to wrap up today, but I wanted to thank everybody for your time and thank those for attending. And from all of us here at Progress to all of you, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Please be on the lookout. Within the next 24 to 48 hours, we will be posting a copy of the recording. And as a follow-up, sending out a link to Discord where you can continue the discussion with the team. So thank you all for joining. Have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
you so
everybody.
much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.